Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
Charlie Neff here.
Courtney here.
And Fabian here.
So I think this morning the lawyer for Alec Baldwin is pulling his hair out. I get on a level why he wanted to talk because, you know, everybody wanted to talk to him.
Yeah, he was being hounded.
Yeah.
Right.
Quite literally.
He was.
But you don't do this if you're under this type of
Well,
investigation.
here's the problem. I mean, I don't think there was any scenario on which Alec Baldwin would be charged criminally for shooting the gun because I don't think when you rely on somebody, it rises to the level of negligence.
Yeah, you were making this point clearly last week that Alec Baldwin was not at fault and probably not going to be charged. But you're saying you feel differently now?
But don't you just want to wait until...
Here's what I feel differently about.
Okay.
I still think that's true.
Right, he's not at fault.
But there's a problem. He has a second role, which is executive producer.
That hasn't changed. That's been the fact since last week, since
Right.
the beginning.
But he didn't say anything. Here's what he said over the weekend.
Right, Alec, what's the current state of what's going on with the case?
I'm not allowed to make any comments because it's an ongoing investigation. I've been ordered by the Sheriff's Department in Santa Fe. I can't answer any questions about the investigation. I can't. It's an active investigation in terms of a woman died. She was my friend. She was my friend. The day I arrived in Santa Fe to start shooting, I took her to dinner with Joel, the director. We were a very, very well-oiled crew shooting a film together, and then this horrible event happened. Now, I've been told multiple times, don't make any comments about the ongoing investigation, and I can't. That's it.
Do you think production will start up again on
No, I doubt it. Necessarily doubt.
Look, he is saying it's a well-oiled machine. He is now putting himself out there as the executive producer.
Right.
And
he's characterizing it as, you know, this was a...
one in a trillion.
Yeah, one in a trillion thing, and it was a freak thing, it was a fluke thing. But that's not what you should be saying at this point when you're under... I mean, he's not under investigation, but he's part of the investigation.
Are you admitting fault if you say, like, oh, we didn't have it together clearly?
Right. Yes, but then the other option is don't say anything.
Yeah.
Don't say anything because you have a situation where he's saying it's a well-oiled machine. Well-oiled machine?
But
we've
hold
done
on,
stories.
Hold on. There are live bullets on the set. People were target practicing on the set with live ammunition. There was a real gun in the set, and there shouldn't be. It should be a prop gun.
Right.
There was an assistant director who never should have handed the gun to him. It should have been the armorer.
Right.
And yet he did. He didn't check the chamber. And you had people standing in the line of fire, which shouldn't have happened.
Right.
And
So
also, Hannah Gutierrez also said that she had way too many things on her hand. It was wearing way too many hats, which shouldn't have been the case.
Right.
So you got all of these things, and in the wake of it, when he says it's a well-oiled machine and it's a 1 in a trillion thing, I mean, I think that's going to catch the attention of the DA.
But why though? Like, is it because that he's saying that it was one way when it was clearly the opposite? That someone's going to look at that and say, "Hold on a second, you obviously didn't know what the hell you were doing. You didn't know what kind of a set you were running." So there needs to be some kind of... Is that what you're saying? That someone is hearing him say something which is the opposite of the reality?
Wasn't there a walkout that morning
we've done
too?
There was a
stories about
walkout that
safety
morning.
consists-
So how can you say that it's a well-oiled
He's obviously...
machine?
He's not, I'm not saying he's lying, but he's obviously wrong.
Disconnected.
He's just disconnected from reality, and maybe
Right.
he's just saying this to cover his ass or
And he's
whatever
also
it may be.
acting, so he's probably not focusing on the crew
For sure.
and production.
Yeah, but look, he is the executive producer. Here's the reality to this. There are politics involved, even with district attorneys, because a lot of them are elected. And you have a situation where you got a DA and you got a sheriff, and they have made it clear they want someone accountable for this.
They do.
They have made it clear. So everybody's in their crosshairs, and Alec Baldwin, by saying this, becomes more of a target for them.
This video will become part of the evidence that they look at as they evaluate charges.
So do you think his lawyer knew that he was going to go
No,
out and do this?
absolutely-
Or like he found out afterwards?
Absolutely not.
What probably would
Because,
happen
like-
is there's tons of paparazzi that know where he's staying with his wife, and they're probably following him and hounding him.
They were.
They were. No,
Alec,
that's
literally,
true.
So
him and
him-
Hilary and everything, they pulled off the side of the road. Alec confronted these paparazzi and said, "You're making my kids cry, so let's get on with it. Let's talk.
Totally.
What do you want to
Once
know?
he says something, then they kind of disperse and like leave him alone.
Right. And
essentially.
by the way, I mean, Alec Baldwin, we've covered him for years, and this is par for the course for him. He gets confrontational. He has a temper. So once I saw this video, I was like, I am not surprised. I'm frankly, I'm surprised it remained as civil as it did, because he has been known to fly off the handle
But he
in
didn't.
the past.
But he didn't. The thing is, even if he just said, look, this is a tragedy, we're dealing with it,
Right.
all of that stuff,
That would have been kosher.
That's fine. But getting in bed, and he started by saying, I'm not allowed to talk about the case.
Then he
But
went
then
on. Then he went on to
talking
continue talking about it. It's
yeah,
like, whoa.
and all the conclusions that he drew don't seem to square with what happened on the set. And that's why I think, God, if he would have just kept it on the emotional level,
Yeah.
that's one thing. I just think this is a problem. Meanwhile, his wife said,
Poor
Hilaria.
Hilaria.
well, I have to say,
No.
you know, she came out and she said, look, he's going to be suffering from PTSD.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think there's any question about that,
For
right?
sure.
I mean, it's
It's definitely
really
a traumatic experience.
Although some people were kind of giving her backlash a little bit, like, wait, what? You're comparing him to a war vet? You're
Well,
comparing
yeah,
him to a
don't
cop?
compare to
No.
soldiers.
Yeah.
PTSD is not just that from war.
That's true.
It's
That's
not just
true.
that's not fair.
Right.
It is not just
It's not
from
fair
war.
to who?
It's
her?
not. It's
To
not
war
fair to her
vets.
because it's not just a war thing.
Right.
But she said it. She said
She's allowed
it's-
to say it.
No, you can't be like, well, it's just
It
like
is
soldiers
PTSD.
and police. Like,
No, she
don't
didn't-
use them as examples.
It is.
It's a completely
some
different
people,
type
some
of
people
it.
feel that it was perhaps in poor taste to invoke, soldiers and cops. However, you're right. A lot of people develop PTSD for a lot of different reasons. You don't have to necessarily be at war or on the streets fighting crime to develop.
The
You
something
people
don't.
know
like
that, but you don't have to use.
You're right. I
soldiers
think
as an
it
example.
might have been in
She
poor
doesn't
taste.
have to.
You're
Yeah.
right.
Okay, we're getting ridiculous that you can't
By the way,
use that
speak-
because
speak-
that's what
No.
people that's the way people understand
No,
PTSD.
it's not.
Yes, it
And
is.
they shouldn't.
They
because there's other
understand it
types
from
of
war.
We don't have to get too hung up
I
on
mean,
it. By the way,
come on.
this video of Hilaria and Alec on the road is and it's so sobering and somber, obviously, but it was so funny to me personally. Like Alec was like kind of hushing her. She's like, okay, no details. He's like, honey, let me handle this. Like he gets pushed. It was so funny. I was like, oh my God, like
Well,
they're
she's trying to
they're not on the
protect
same
him.
page. She's and I give her credit for being there for Alec and supporting him. She posted an Instagram photo saying, I'm there for you or whatever. But it was just so funny. He's just like, honey, hush now. I'm gonna handle this. But it's just funny because he should have listened to Hilaria because he kind of put his foot in his mouth. Anyway, so
Well, I mean,
He shaved his beard too. I feel like he should have left the
well,
beard
no,
on. especially for the video.
by the way, we should say he shaved his beard. One of the key things said was,
that maybe he was expecting to continue on with the movie, right?
Oh,
But
that
now
movie's-
it's not
yeah,
happening.
so
he made it clear this movie's never going
which I think is something
day.
everybody assumed right off the bat. Like nobody thought, oh my God, when is this movie coming out? Although I will say this, it is not. At first in my mind, I'm like, well, it's a foregone conclusion that Rust is never going to see the light of day. In hindsight, though, as I think about it, it's actually not a foregone conclusion because this exact thing happened on The Crow, where the lead actor was literally killed, and they've continued on with that movie.
Let's also talk about the Twilight Zone the Twilight Zone movie, where Vic Morrow and the child actor were decapitated by a helicopter, and it's still
Jesus,
Oh
I'm
my.
not even aware
and
of that.
it's
And
still
it came out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So okay,
came out.
so I'm wrong in this. Yeah, I mean because we talked about it over the weekend.
Yeah.
We were kind of having a debate like how newsworthy is this line of Alec Baldwin saying Russ is probably not going to continue. In hindsight, it is actually newsworthy.
Well, yeah,
because
because what if Halyna's family said something along the lines of like she would have wanted this movie to come out? At that point,
True.
you should.
Yeah.
Well,
so we'll see. We'll see.
It's not coming out.
It doesn't seem like it.
Okay, we are going to move.
Oh,
on.
my favorite story of the
I love
weekend.
this
Kim
one.
Kardashian and Pete Davidson.
This
Are
was-
they banging?
This was the
Oh,
hangout.
boy.
I don't think anyone ever expected.
Okay, so we
But
so,
then you kind of understand it because it's Pete
So
Davidson
there's-
and he gets the most.
So we need to talk about Pete Davidson,
let's
and
explain.
so first of all, so we got video this weekend of Pete and Kim and Travis and Courtney and
Big
a bunch
group of
a
people.
bunch of their other friends or whatever. They all went out to Knott's Berry Farm from some Halloween thing. They were riding roller coasters. We got video of Pete and Kim getting off the coaster together. Kim is incognito or trying to be at least. It's quite obvious from her. I told Bradley.
But it always says something about who you share a ride
It
with.
does.
Yes.
You share the same car. She was sharing the same car with Pete. There are photos out there on the internet right now of them also holding hands as
during
they're-
a drop.
as they're going
Mhm.
down on these drops. Because
Right.
when you go on these roller coasters, they take your photos.
It's
They're-
scary. The
At one
drops are
point, they
scary.
were
It's not
holding
that
hands.
scary.
She's right next to him, smiling. They're having a good time. Look, the official party line from the Kardashians camp is that there's nothing going on here.
Just friends.
They're just friends. They're longtime friends.
Hold on. Okay,
bullshit.
Can I
It's
just ask?
absolute bullshit. It is.
Were they smiling when they said that?
Yeah.
Well, it's just
But
ridiculous.
you can be longtime friends and then like fall
Charlie.
in love
First
at
of all,
Knott's Berry Farm.
they're not
Charlie.
longtime friends because if they were, we would see them. They have never been photographed
You don't
together.
think they've ever known each other?
Maybe
Before
maybe,
SNL?
I have
I
not
feel like
seen
they
them.
have.
Guys.
Maybe they knew each other. They were
No,
friendly,
they
but
knew
they
each
were not
hold on.
friends.
Yes,
That's
they
a,
were. Yes, they were. They did the whole entire thing where Pete Davidson went to a Kid Cudi birthday party. Kim and Kanye
But that
were
was
there. They
that
had
was
dinner
that was
together.
Kanye was there though, right?
No, and then Kim was there too because Pete Davidson
yeah,
did the
but he
whole entire
definitely knows
thing.
That's what I'm
Kanye.
saying.
And
like,
then they also
perhaps
hung
they
out
were perhaps they
before.
were friendly and cordial, but they weren't.
Right.
You're missing the big
friends that
point.
hung
Pete
out.
Davidson
We
is
are not-
white. Are we not going to talk about the point that Pete Davidson's white?
So
Have
first
we
of all,
ever seen
here's
him?
the speculation. I think that he's
Oh.
smashing. He's definitely smashing in my mind. I think they're
What do you mean by smashing? Like smashingly handsome?
no smashing means having sex.
Oh,
He is
God.
smashing.
God,
You're
Charlie,
so Bay
Charlie,
Area.
if I know this.
That's a lot of people say smashing. That's not a Bay Area term. Anyway,
It's just so gross.
I know
it's-
that
whatever.
too.
He's
They're
definitely
banging.
they're definitely banging. In my
Oh,
mind.
You know what?
And
You're
by the
not
way,
doing.
and it's so funny because the most obvious thing is, well, Kim is so out of his league. What the hell? Like this
That's
is.
not.
That's not
But
true.
it's
That's
not.
not
I
It's,
don't think anyone's surprised by them being
So
together
first,
and
let's
her
just-
being interested.
Let's just break
if-
down the logistics.
if
First of all, if this is in fact true that they are hooking up and together right now, maybe they're not dating, but they're hooking up, and that just says a lot in and of itself. If that's true, Pete Davidson's portfolio of women is legendary. I'm very jealous of it, and I hate him. I hate his guts over all this.
Is that what this is all about? Is
I
this why you're
hate
Yeah,
Pete Davidson,
what
but
a
I
rant.
hate.
well, no,
God.
But I got-
he's king of the hill.
But I
if
also
this
got to
happens.
tip
Oh,
my.
he's
king-
the new
he's king
David
of the-
Spade.
Well,
You got to
Beckinsale,
tip your
Phoebe
cap to
Bridgers-
this guy because he's got
Ariana
Ariana under his
Grande,
belt.
Kate-
He's got Kate
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 Beckinsale.
Beckinsale.
The Kate Beckinsale thing was
Phoebe
wa-
from Bridgerton.
Yes, and now
he's
potentially-
really funny. He's
No, no, no,
really
no, no.
emotional.
Funny
It's
guys always get it. It's the
it's
David
not-
Spade
Guys
effect
always
now.
get
You guys are
it.
missing the point. It's not about funny or not. Like this guy, there's a running
I
gag.
love how you're telling us.
I know,
what
like,
girls
why
like. How you're like,
he's
no,
attractive.
Well,
we know it.
But part of this is that everybody says, oh, well, he dated so and so and he dated so and so, and because of
Pete
that,
Davidson
people want to
stays
date
funny.
people. No.
It's because he's also funny, that's why you can-
No. The way
Harvey, funny
Oh,
is
now we
number
have
one.
two guys telling us what women want.
No. I'm talking about the way Hollywood works.
Yeah.
Is that when people think somebody has got it, everybody wants it. And Pete Davidson, everybody's saying, wow, he must be this and that because he dated Kate Beckinsale. So it just becomes a life of its own.
Look, I'm not-
and then he can date anybody he
Listen,
wants to date.
I'm not trying to
No,
be
that's
vulgar,
not
but here's the truth. There's a running joke with Pete Davidson about BDE. Are you guys familiar with what this is?
Yes.
Yes.
Ariana
We don't
had
have- I don't-
mentioned
yes.
that he
No,
is well endowed.
I don't know if she
Thank
said
you
that.
for
I don't
putting
know
it
if she,
so
I
much
don't know.
better
I
than
don't know if she,
Fabian
I don't know
was.
if she said that.
Fabian coming on BDE.
Did she say that specifically or not? So she said.
Yeah,
okay.
there's.
So
she
there's
hinted to that.
a rumor around town that Pete Davidson is hung. You know what I mean? The dude's got a big.
Jesus, Fabian.
I'm just
Okay,
saying.
Fabian.
I'm just saying. But that is
Fabian.
that
Do
is
you
the word.
want to date Kim or do you want to date Pete
I
Davidson?
know,
right now?
my God. What a man
I'm just
crush.
talking about this
You are.
scientifically.
Oh my
Let's
God.
talk about this scientifically.
I think
If-
you're explaining this to guys, by
No,
the
no,
way,
I'm
because
just saying,
you don't need
I'm-
to explain
I'm-
this to girls.
We need
get
to
it.
explain
It's
this.
funny.
We need to explain this to our audience because
Fabian,
listen,
maybe we don't.
no, listen.
I
If this
know.
isn't, if
No,
this
but
isn't,
maybe we don't.
if this is in fact true, which it very well might be, honestly, then that makes sense that he gets with Kim because Kim is a lot of women, frankly, and a normal dude
What?
cannot handle
Oh my
a woman
God.
like Kim Kardashian.
Hey,
Okay.
You have to-
guys,
you have to-
guys,
you
guys,
have to
guys,
be-
guys,
But
guys.
hey, real quick, we should explain the reason why they were both there at Knott's Berry Farm. So we are hearing that Courtney and Travis are the reason why they were both there. That they invited everyone. So it's not like Kim invited him herself. They all like know each other, all in the same friends group, and of course, riding in the same cart together on a ride.
I just
is
think
kinda
there's
And I did
obviously
share
and,
this
something
on
going
SNL.
on.
by the way, a lot of people thought, well, yeah, he's friends with Machine Gun Kelly, and Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah, they
is-
run in the same
Right.
circles,
But guess what?
obviously.
Machine Gun Kelly wasn't there that night.
No, he was not.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite thing of the weekend, I was so into this. There was an incredibly interesting discussion that Bill Maher had about heroic masculinity versus toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And Caitlin Flanagan, who's an Atlantic writer, this was such a good show. She was on with Senator Chris Coons of Delaware.
Yeah.
And they started Bill started talking about toxic masculinity and about how that, boys, playing with G.I. Joes and all of this stuff.
Right, and
He-
wanting to save the day, and
he-
wanting to be like wanting to be heroic.
and also retraining parents on how
Mhm.
they
And-
are raising their
and
little boys.
Right, and that got Caitlin going. She's written an article on this, and she is saying, why are we trying to downplay?
Why are we shunning?
Heroic masculinity?
Yes.
Because she's saying, if I'm in a burning building, I want a man to come rescue me.
Yeah.
She said women just are not as strong.
Yeah,
They're not as
And
fast.
she also said boys are boys and girls are girls, and why are we blending those lines?
So she just went in
Which
on
is
this.
hella true, by the way.
There was just a big article in the New York Times. Some woman is saying, I'm really concerned about my 3 sons. They like stories about saving the day. They like playing video games where they can be a hero. That's called heroic masculinity. It's a real thing. We need it. It's been part of humanity since the beginning. That's what ran up those towers, those 300 and something men who gave their lives for others. That was heroic masculinity. And there's just something sick and poisoned that this idea that boys are bad and that they have to be watched and that they have to be retrained and that the people who are going to do the watching and retraining are women. The people who raise boys, you need to have men very involved because boys want to grow up to be men.
Now, what I loved was...
By the way, we should say she is 100% right.
Well,
in my point of view.
Well, here's the thing. This was so interesting to me. So Senator Coons decides he is going to raise an issue with 2 other women that are elevated to the level that Caitlin is talking about. So listen to this.
One of the things we focused on, my wife and I, in raising our kids, was giving them a model that's positive for heroic adulthood.
Right.
So I'll tell you, in Congress, whether it's Speaker Pelosi or Senator Mikulski was a senator from Maryland, tough as nails, capable leaders, decisive.
Now listen to how Caitlin responds.
Senator Pelosi, God love her. I'm not going to wait for her to come into the burning building and get me out of there when she was of age. And I believe me, I'm as strong a woman as you're ever going to get within the feeble world in which I work.
Caitlin says, I don't want Nancy Pelosi taking me out of a burning building because she can't do it.
She can't do it, yeah.
Physically can't do it, I think is what she's
But he's
saying,
right. He's right. Physically, he's right.
She's right.
She's right.
Yeah.
She's right.
So basically, and this kind of gets down to this issue of blending gendered lines. And there's this whole conversation happening nationally right now about gender and is it fluid?
Like
is it
we're
not?
all equal.
Right. And look, I 100% agree with Caitlin here. And I don't think Senator Coons was disagreeing with her. He was just kind of saying look, I teach my boys.
He was walking a tightrope because I think
right.
there's a certain element of the progressive wing that just believes this, and I think he was dancing on this.
He was, but he was saying look, there are virtues and attributes good attributes that I teach both my boys and my girls. But she pinned him and said, but you make a distinction between things that you teach your boys and things that you teach your girls, correct? And he's like, yeah. And he finally admitted it. But
that's not correct, though.
What do you mean? What's not correct?
Because even you still have to teach them the same things. You don't.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, he was saying I teach them a lot of the same things, but she made the distinction saying there are certain things you teach your boys how to be men, like men are men, and they need to step up and be men sometimes. And that's what she's saying. Society needs men. We don't need. And she's saying masculinity is, yes, it can be toxic. That we can acknowledge that, but masculinity in and of itself is not a bad thing.
But the whole term of toxic masculinity kind of comes from the general thing of guys getting a pass for bad behavior.
For sure.
Okay, but there are a small group of people, extremists, that believe that we should all be on one level, that there should be no pink or blue, there should be no,
but that seems
that we
to be
should
the
all be
tide.
equal.
That seems to be the tide.
I don't know about that. I
so
think it's just a small group
here's
of people.
here's a good
saying that.
example.
Well, hold on. We did a poll on the website. I thought this was interesting. Heroic masculinity, it's a good thing. It's toxic. 74%, it's a good thing. 26%, it's toxic.
That's not a lot.
I think what
quarter of the population.
Caitlin is saying is that masculinity, that term and that idea itself has been conflated with quote toxic masculinity,
Right.
and that all of it is seen as that's bad. We should be downplaying masculinity. She's saying no, let men be men, let boys be boys. By the way, here's a good example of this blending of lines, and I'm not criticizing it. Their parents can make their own decisions, but Megan Fox and Brian Austin Green, they're 3 boys who are boys, as far as I know. Look like girls, and they raised them kind of like girls, and they wear dresses.
They let them choose. They let them choose what to wear.
And that's the thing. That's fine.
That's different.
But the thing is, they clearly parent in a way where they're
not forcing
Well, but
the
wait a minute.
kids.
I don't know
to
what's
play
going.
with
I don't
the
know what's
G.I.
going on
Joe.
behind the scenes.
That's
I don't know
different.
what.
But wait a minute. I think you're mixing 2 things.
Are we?
You
Yeah,
are.
you
Yes.
are. I think, look, in terms of identity, and that's a real issue. that's something that I think we're still working out on how to deal with identity as kids grow up. That is different from saying that you should shun teaching any boy, the masculine version of heroic because there's something bad about that.
Right.
And I think that was Caitlin's point. That was Bill Maher's point. But I don't think it goes to identity. I think that's a whole other issue.
Also, really quick for heroic masculinity, I think the issue is not necessarily men wanting to be this hero, wanting to be Superman. It's the other side, which is women. What we have to look forward to are princesses that need a man to be a queen, that need saving, that need somebody else.
Help.
They can't just be great on their own. That's kind of where the teeter-totter
But
that's
a totally fair point. Totally fair
point.
But
I don't understand what you're saying. Like, what do you?
No.
It needs to be balanced. Mm-hmm. So on the other hand,
they're
instead
two
of
separate things, Charlie.
No, they're not. They're on the same level.
They're not because a woman's independence, which is important, does not in any way intersect with heroic masculinity, that you could have both.
But people question, why is it okay to teach a boy to be Superman and be great just on his own? But on the flip side, for girls, they need a man to be great.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying.
The point.
But independent of what happens with men.
People don't find that independent.
Well,
they find that on the same vein.
I think that you're right, but I think you can say you've got to advocate for independence of girls learning that.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't have to come at the expense of telling boys you can't play with GI.
But it's part of the argument.
It has to be looked on the same level because a stronger woman's looked at much worse than a stronger man. Like girls get called bitchy or catty or everything when they do our independence or stand up for themselves.
And it's those lines that they're trying
It's just
to
so interesting
correct.
because Caitlin Flanagan here, I think, was sort of embracing it's very interesting. She was embracing sort of what I would consider sort of an older type of point of view of society. Like men are men are stronger. There's a reason for that. She was saying we should embrace that. We shouldn't shun that. We shouldn't discourage boys from being that way. And I was like, and you're right. It's because a more nuanced point of view in my mind is look, women can also be heroic too. We don't have to shun that from them. But she seems to be saying, keep the boys and the girls separate. Keep them in their place.
Biologically,
that's kind of how I sort of interpret it.
Keep them in their place physically. Physically,
but also ideologically. That's what she's saying.
No,
that's kind of what I was. Here.
I don't think she was saying women shouldn't have the same opportunities as men at all.
Yeah, and you're right. She did. I'm trying to put words in her mouth. She did not say that, but I sort of.
But both
if you
have
extrapolate,
their strengths.
If you extrapolate her thinking, that's kind of where I thought she was going. Anyway,
Colin Kaepernick.
Oh my
Colin Kaepernick.
So, oh my God. So I thought long and hard about this over the weekend because at first I was just what the hell. Then I kind of thought about it. So anyway, so we should just lay out what the story is. So over the weekend, Colin's new, I don't know if it's a movie or a docuseries. It's whatever it is. It looks like a Lifetime movie, but it's on Netflix. It's called Colin in Black and White. And the first 2 minutes, he's narrating a reenactment. You see football players on the football field. They're doing practice drills. He's reenacting an NFL combine, which is where guys are trying out for a team. They're being measured. Their athletic prowess is being measured. They're being scouted essentially. And Colin is saying, you see this NFL combine where mostly black players are being literally measured and whatnot. He's saying this is akin, quite literally, to slavery.
Yeah, it does because it goes from showing the NFL footage to slavery.
If we have the clip,
it's really well produced.
It's well produced. I mean, yeah, it's Netflix. Of course, they're going to produce it well. But he says, this is the quote. He says, before they put you on the field, teams poke, prod, and examine you, searching for any defect that might affect your performance. No boundary respected, no dignity left intact. And as he's saying this, you see a black football player literally being, examined and poked and prodded. And Colin, in his mind, says, this is just like what they did to slaves back in the day, where they were measuring us and they were saying, who's the strongest slave? And those are the ones that got sold
for the most.
Yeah, for the most money or whatever.
Right.
A lot of people were furious over this because they point out, and this is something that needs to be pointed out to Colin. I'm sure he's aware of it, but an NFL play, it's just they're not literally the same.
No, correct.
Obviously, they're not literally the same. I don't think.
One is a choice.
Yes,
one
yes.
is
If you're an NFL player, you're choosing to and you're also getting paid millions of dollars to do that. But here's the thing: I don't think Colin.
It is so disrespectful.
Even though Colin made the literal comparison visually, I don't think he's literally saying NFL players are
He's
literally.
not. He's trying to.
It's more. It's
literally
putting a
laying
visual,
down.
He's setting a
It's
point.
more meta. It's more meta. I thought about it. He's making a metaphorical comparison. He's saying, "I see parallels here," and a lot of people agree with him. They say, "Yeah, we see parallels too." And that's that's. But the way he went about it, just kind of, it was such a staunch image, such a staunch juxtaposition that he made. People were like, "What the hell? That's not the same." But he was trying to say, "Look, this is a meta. In this, it's more in the spirit of slavery."
I got to ask, because when I read and heard this, it reminded me. Look, I was in boot camp, and they did that to everybody.
Yes,
they did that to everybody.
That is such a great point. I've never been in the army, but I imagine people in the armed forces are treated the exact same. They're treated like dog meat.
By the way, in modeling, they want to know your measurements. They want to know how tall you are. They want to know how skinny your waist is. Are we going to compare that to slavery?
So exactly. So are army people and models, are they also slaves? Are they parallels? Like,
some
no.
Things don't need to be compared. Slavery, there's nothing comparable to that. It stands on its own as a horrific act, and to try to draw some kind of parallel between NFL players that choose to play football, that get paid millions to play football, it's disgusting to draw that parallel.
Yes, and here's the thing too, that I think Colin is a little bit hypocritical. Like, he's a hypocrite in my opinion, because on the one hand, he made a stance. He kneeled. He ended up losing his job over that.
There was a huge cost to him.
I know, but I
don't consider that hypocritical.
But here's the thing: he was trying to get back in the NFL. This guy was trying to get a job back with this same league that he's now bashing and saying, "You guys are slave owners."
Change the league.
He was not trying to change the league. He was just trying to play football.
He's trying to bring awareness and change it.
He was trying to be a quarterback again. That was his number one priority. That's why he was doing
this. If it
grew.
was his number one priority, he wouldn't have done what he did by kneeling, because that cost him his career.
Why do you think he was out there doing those tryouts? Remember those tryouts that we covered? He was trying to get a job back in the league.
But he was going to do it on his terms. That he had made a statement. He got other people involved in it, and then he said, "I want to come back, but on my terms." And I think that's kind of noble. My issue is,
do you think it's noble for him? So basically, he's saying, "I want to come back and work for the same guys that I'm now calling slave owners."
Well, look, Jay-Z came in. Jay-Z came in. The league has changed.
Jay-Z coming in is an empty gesture.
No, it's not. You have to be a part of it to change it, and you have to be involved. And
but
that's what
also,
he's trying to do.
Jay-Z wasn't ever a football player.
We can talk about this forever. We can. We'll just have to agree to disagree.
The fundamental criticism of this was that by invoking slavery into something like this, it diminishes the horror of slavery.
Absolutely.
It does.
Okay, we're going to move on.
All right, guys, I got something fun for you guys. So basically, it was Halloween weekend.
Yes,
a million celebrities were out for, parties and whatnot. Lizzo, I felt like, was the best because she was Baby Yoda. It was hysterical. But the most awkward run-in this weekend was J Lo and Ben Affleck trick-or-treating in Malibu. And guess who they ran into?
Well, hold on. That's a strong term. Ran into? We don't actually know if they ran into each other. So basically,
bumped into?
Not even bumped into. We don't even. So listen. So Jennifer Garner was in the same area,
in Malibu.
Was photographed in the same area, in the same neighborhood as Ben and Jen. We don't know if they actually crossed paths. They were never photographed together, but she was out while they were also out around the same time, it seems, right? And I don't know if they bumped into each other. I don't think. Who knows if they did or not?
Wait, were they trick-or-treating with the kids or like?
Yeah.
So J-Lo's kids were with.
No. So
J-Lo
Nikki corrected me. She said it was
Ben and Jen's.
It was Jennifer Lopez's son Max, who's in the black, and then it was Ben Affleck's son Samuel, who's in the pink wig. So it was those two kids. Perhaps the other kids were also on hand. We don't see them in the photos. Ben is with J-Lo. They're with at least those two kids. They're doing their thing. At some point later that evening, you also see Jennifer Garner out and about, but with a friend of hers or something like that. What this says to me is that, look, Jennifer Garner, we have not seen Jennifer Garner ever really mingle publicly with any of Ben Affleck's love interests at all, right? I behind the scenes,
no double dates.
Yeah, no double dates or that. I don't ever see them going out for lunch together. She's always she's cool with letting him take the kids, and you can meet your significant other. She's obviously cool with that. Presumably, she's also cool with the significant other themselves. But what this said to me was look, I don't care if Ben and Jen are out here. I'm gonna come out here. Sorry, I'm banging the table. I'm gonna come out here and do my thing too. I'm gonna show up. I'm not gonna shy away and huddle inside. She was like, yeah, I'm out here too. What's up?
That also assumes that she's upset about this.
Yeah, I don't think
and that she's gonna brave going out. I think she's over it. And I also think that, look, she struggled with Ben because Ben had issues.
He still has issues, yes.
And, well, look, I mean, hopefully Ben's a lot better now, and he seems a lot better. But, you know, at a point, and I don't want to say it this way, but Jennifer Garner may say, okay, this is not my issue anymore.
Right.
And that isn't to say that there's anything wrong with Ben now, because he looks great and he seems great, but she's been through it as well. And so she may be over this. And look, she's saying that the win here is we're co-parenting well and everything else. Good luck to you. I wish you nothing but the best. She may not have these lingering feelings at all. So it may be nothing.
Well,
I think it's nothing.
So the question is, why is this even a story? Why is it a story that Jennifer Garner was out
you know
around
why
the
it's
same
a story?
time?
You know why it's a story for me?
Because to me, in my mind, I just explained why I think it's a story, but somebody tell me why otherwise.
I'll tell you why it's a story for me, at least. There's something I love about LA, that everybody looks at this as this sprawling city with millions and millions and millions and millions of people, which is true. On the other hand, LA is like a one-horse town. It's like, you know,
Hollywood's
there are
small.
like 5 restaurants that every celebrity goes to. They live in the Brentwood area and everybody goes to the Country Mart.
Right.
In Malibu, everybody goes to one place. And it's like, it's a small town when you live in your neighborhood. So what I love about it is people think, wow, what are the chances the two of them would run into each other? Well,
Quite
a lot.
high,
And nobody thinks of LA that way, but it's 2 different places rolled into one. That's why I love it.
So are you saying that this is more coincidence and not on purpose? Because I think it's the latter. I think.
Oh, it's not on purpose.
Not on purpose. They were both out in Malibu.
I think it was.
Baby.
Everyone's got their habits.
That's my conspiratorial mind.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, okay, we'll talk.
Oh, boy.
Next Wednesday, Fabian talks about the grassy knoll.
Yeah.
By the way, you can catch our podcast 3
Yes,
days
you can
a
catch
week.
us on Apple, Spotify, Google. We're on
Wherever you
YouTube
get
as
your
well. Literally
podcasts.
anywhere you get your podcasts, we're out there. So give us a watch.
And we'll talk to you Wednesday.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye.